Well, hello, everybody. Welcome in, and thanks for listening to Hail Yes, a Detroit Free Press podcast about University of Michigan athletics. I'm Tony Garcia, Michigan beat writer for The Free, as always, joined by my colleague and buddy, Reiner Sabin. He's our Big Ten insider, covers both Michigan and Michigan State for us at The Free Press. And, oh, buddy, did we see just how far apart those two programs really are. That's where we're going with this show. Obviously, nowhere else to go. Michigan whips up MSU in every which way a team can be whipped. 49-0. Somehow might have felt even more than that. Reiner, take it from there.
It was a bloodbath. The worst home loss in Michigan State's history. They were never competitive from the outset. That 12-play, 84-yard drive that featured two back-breaking third down conversions really set the tone. Then the fourth down stop on the MSU's first possession just kind of killed MSU's spirit. And from there, Michigan just rolled over them, dominated them in every facet. They had the advantage in every aspect of the game, coaching, execution, defense, offense, you name it. It was just total domination.
Right. And that was early in the week. It was kind of what was expected, right? I mean, it was one of the most lopsided spreads in this rivalry has seen since it's really been being tracked in the past couple decades. However, given Michigan's scandal, the allegations that arose late in the week after we last recorded our podcast, I mean, it's not like people thought Michigan was going to forget how to play football, right? But it felt like maybe MSU had a little bit of juice that it needed, or there may be some. Who knows? Just there was that rivalry week story, that thing that always happens. It seemed to be that was it. And Michigan just tabled it, shelved it, put it to the side as if it never happened. Of course, it did happen. So we will need to talk about it and everything that surrounding NCAA allegations. But that's going to be in the B block. The A block, three thoughts about that game. The beatdown, J.J. McCarthy is now, if not your Heisman frontrunner, and some books have him there. He's darn near it. I mean, just the evolution and the arc of J.J. McCarthy, and then the state of really the program as it heads into the bye week on full just cloud nine. So Reiner, let's start with the defense because they finally got their shutout. Then we'll move it to the offense, and that will parlay into J.J. McCarthy. Obviously, Mike Sainer still the pick six. The highlight of the night. What else stood out to you as Michigan shut out Michigan State for the first time since 2000, which was 23 years ago to the day, actually, also October 21st, for what it's worth. But that was 14-0, not 49.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing that stood out was the fact that basically Michigan State didn't get inside Michigan's 40-yard line until the fourth quarter. And so they couldn't get anything going throughout the game from the defense and against Michigan's defense. And that, again, it was another credit to Jesse Minter having his guys ready for anything that MSU would throw at them. I mean, Caden Hauser is in his second start. I don't know how much you could have expected from him against that top level defense, but he looked a little bit overwhelmed and not ready for the moment. And so Michigan took advantage of that and controlled it from the outset, especially on the defensive side. Now, offensively, J.J. McCarthy was pretty incredible. I mean, making off-platform throws, huge third down conversions that kept Michigan going. Michigan didn't need much from its running game, and they attacked the middle of Michigan State's defense, which is actually a great idea because Cal Holiday is a liability in pass coverage. And so Michigan used the tight ends to do that. And it was very effective. Michigan finds your weakness and then they take advantage of it. It's like it's like a predator in the wild. They'll find it.
Yeah. And not every team is built to exploit every weakness, right? But when Michigan has seemingly strength across the board, what's crazy? How crazy is it? I think it's safe to say the weakest part right now of this Michigan team, it's rushing attack. There is no one who would have said that going into the season. And I mean, and the run game does need to get going, but like that's where this is at. That Blake Corum, reigning unanimous All-American, behind an offensive line that's still paving the way, like okay on the ground. And they're without their short yardage back yesterday, which JJ McCarthy, that offense you're talking about, he was 7 of 8 on third downs when he was on the field against Michigan State's defense, which ranked number 3 in America in third down percentage. Like conversions allowed, they were only allowing offenses to convert like just less than a quarter of third downs. McCarthy was 7 of 8 when he was on the field, and the only one that was stopped was actually the 3rd and 1 run. Their shortest situation. But we're going to get to there's tons of time for JJ McCarthy praise. I just want to get back to the defense momentarily because it just felt like a really overlooked storyline because Katin Houser didn't turn it over against Rutgers, right? Because he had 3 touchdowns. It was easy to say, oh, like Michigan State, they're going to turn a corner, like they're going to turn a corner, or they found something there. There was not a lot of tape. Like, yes, Katin Houser had come in with some experience. There was not a full game plan of tape for how we're going to tailor this offense around Katin Houser, right? And that's against Rutgers. Even still, he needed 29 passes to throw the ball for 133 yards, right? The second start is never the same as the first. The first start is actually better, oftentimes, because of that unexpected nature. So with Michigan having tape film on him, who knows how much, right? I guess that's the joke. And also, that was a joke. But MSU, for any chance they had offensively, early in the first half, Katin Houser was running to the sideline and getting the play from like a backup quarterback or someone. Right. Mm-hmm. And so any chance and you have to have some sort of momentum like going downhill against Michigan's defense. So any slight hope they had was completely derailed.
True. But I mean, again, if Houser was so good, I mean, he would have probably won the job outright in the preseason. I mean, they started Noah Kim. They turned to Katin Houser. Who knows? They may end up using Sam Levitt by the end of the season. I mean, it's a mess at Michigan State. I mean, as much as Michigan's defense was dominant, I mean, you have to also acknowledge the fact that Michigan State is in a really, really, really dire straits at the moment. And
right, but they put up 24 points a week ago, right? Like I recognize eventually, like it's why I picked it 45-6, right? I mean, right. I say like eventually, I thought they were going to break, and this looked like a spot to do it. However, we keep not giving Michigan's defense the credit, right? I don't want to not give Michigan's defense the credit. Michigan State has been a dumpster fire. Their offense has still somehow been moving the ball, producing yards, even if they turn it over. Right? I mean, Maryland, Iowa's good defense. Like, I mean, I guess at least the numbers say that. I'm watching Michigan every week, so it's not like I've got to see it. You see them, but haven't they moved the ball? I mean, not like yesterday. Yesterday was. That's
true, and I think again that is a credit to Michigan's defense. I think that they were especially able to lock down any of the receivers. They didn't really allow much space on the routes. They couldn't really get open. I don't think Houser had many options to deliver the ball. So they were pretty much blanketed from beginning to end, and so. Yeah, I mean, it was partially Michigan's defense being really good. I think it's also Michigan State's offense not being that good, and that's how you get a 49-0 result.
It takes two to tango.
Yeah, right, exactly. And so I think that in general, it was kind of a showcase of both programs and the state of the rivalry as it is now, where Michigan is so far above Michigan State that they don't even seem to be in the same league, even though they're in the same conference.
Right, and in so many ways, these programs. I mean, there's just no way around it. It's how far apart the programs really are. Michigan State has to go down to go up, and Michigan, all they're talking about is national championships. That's it.
Right.
Like, they're not even talking about Ohio State anymore. Like, do you just their tone is everything is different. And so, just to wrap up the defense, isn't it fun? Do you have fun watching Mike Sainer still with the ball in his hands? I mean, talk about someone who I think they could have used, or I mean, not that they need to as a punt returner. That's someone who I would trust. I mean, he has like I spoke with his parents for a story I'm working on too, and like I just feel like from what they described to me, when I watch him return a pick six, I feel like that's what it was like when you watched him just growing up. They said like I think it was his dad who's like it's just magic. Like he just finds a way. You know what? Some people really do have a knack, and I mean, going the sideline and like the other pick six, 2 long pick sixes.
Well, he was a receiver. I mean, so
of course,
so there's something to that. Reminds me of a little bit of Eddie Jackson. He did a little bit more because he was also a punt returner. But
who you covered
at Alabama, yeah, he had a knack for being able to kind of set up blocks and get back to the end zone and make long returns on interceptions, but also showcase that ability on special teams. And so I think there's something to be said for some of that talent. Like it's not something that everybody has. And so I think Mike Sainristil, like you said, has that.
Yep. All right. Now it's time to talk about JJ McCarthy. We did it. We made sure to touch on a few other things because JJ is always our lead, or often is our lead. But there's a reason for it, right? I mean, there is a reason that JJ McCarthy. I mean, he is on him. He already was highly regarded and has had nothing but a continued meteoric rise this year. I'm not going to pick off all the stats that we both have in front of us that we were putting together when we started the show, Reiner. But just, I mean, number 1 in the nation in QBR, and number 2 in NFL passer rating, 139.4 on the season. I'll just pick those off. Yesterday, 21 of 27, 287 yards. One of those incompletions was a drop, 4 touchdowns, no turnovers. And so outside of that one Rutgers game, I believe it's 15 touchdowns and no picks.
Yeah, I mean,
I did say Rutgers. I meant Bowling Green. I apologize. That was a misspeak. Bowling Green.
And he was setting up his throws with his legs. He was able to maneuver outside the pocket. Like I said, make off-platform throws that are rare in college football. Being able to deliver those kind of throws with tremendous accuracy, especially the one to Roman Wilson for the 25-yard touchdown in the first quarter that kind of basically sealed the outcome. Already at that point, it was a very impressive performance. He also fit balls into tight windows. I think his touchdown pass to Colston Loveland. I mean, that was pretty good coverage by Angelo Gross, and Loveland made the catch and did the Paul Bunyan pose in the end zone. And again, McCarthy kind of has rebounded from that Bowling Green week and just has consistently gotten better and pushed himself into the conversation as potentially the best quarterback in college football right now.
His name is in the conversation, and no conversation would be complete without his name, right? There may be prospects more tantalizing like Caleb Williams. There might be quarterbacks with bigger numbers like Michael Penix, but nobody is winning and producing and efficiencying like JJ McCarthy. I mean, like here's one of my favorite combinations of numbers. He's number 2 in the nation in completion percentage, 78.1%. And he is number 2 in the nation in yards per attempt, 10.6, right? Like now that does not necessarily mean every throw is downfield, but it means they're averaging about a first down every single time he throws the ball, right? So these are not just, and we've watched every game. These are not checkdowns to running backs. It is all mid-level throws, deep level throws. I mean, this offense is built in that 10 to 19 yard window. Roman Wilson on crossers, Cornelius Johnson on those 14-yard comebacks. And yesterday, it was the tight ends. AJ Barner matched his whole season, right? He had 9 catches for 93 yards on the year. And then yesterday, he had 8 for 99 and a touchdown. Colston Loveland, a pair of touchdowns and 70 yards. Those two and JJ McCarthy per Pro Football Focus. You always like when the eye test matches their numbers, they graded out the 3 highest Wolverines on offense.
Yeah, the efficiency actually reminds me of Tua Tagovailoa, and when I saw him in 2018, it was similar. He was producing at a similar rate. I think he threw guys open more than JJ does, and some of his throws and operation was smoother. But McCarthy had, I think, a more powerful arm and is more athletic than Tua too. So I mean, they're little different styles, but the efficiency and everything reminds me of Tagovailoa, who honestly was the best college quarterback I've seen in person, just from just an execution level and advanced knowledge of the game and ability because I just had come from covering the NFL, and that was the closest thing. It reminded me of Tony Romo when I was covering Dallas. I mean, just again, being able to kind of see things before they materialize. And I think JJ, as his career has progressed, is starting to get more and more like that.
Yeah, so key for a quarterback. Two things. One, I would like all the listeners along with me. We're going to start a drinking game. When Reiner mentions Alabama or makes an Alabama comp, we drink. I mean, of course,
it's relevant.
It's what you're here. It's always relevant. It's what you're here to do. It's just I think they do it so like our Gannett affiliate, the Lansing State Journal. One of my buddies and our colleague Graham Couch. They have a joke on Spartan Speak with Chris Solari. Whenever that Graham mentions how he covered Western all the time. So, but I ask you about Alabama, and you covered Nick Saban. I mean, it's dope. It's awesome. I'm just giving you
I know, but I think it's particularly relevant because they're the standard. That's what Michigan. That's what I was assessing Michigan against when I first got here, and Michigan was far below that standard. In 2019 when I first started covering the Wolverines, and Michigan has slowly approached that standard and now can be mentioned in that. I mean, they've got players that look like Alabama's players now. They're executing like Alabama is executing. I mean, that's nothing but praise for what Jim Harbaugh's done and what Michigan has done.
That is very high praise, and that is what you do. I mean, we all. I guess you compare it to your own experiences. And while this might fall on deaf ears for this podcast, the best team and little era I had covered up close, really the only one was Michigan State in 2014, 2015 with Connor Cook when 13, 14, 15, when they went 34-5, won a Rose Bowl, Big Ten. I mean, it was a similar power era to Michigan. And JJ McCarthy is playing far above the level. And Connor Cook was a great quarterback. I mean, he was a killer back then. And JJ, even on those third and longs that we're talking about, JJ McCarthy now on the year, I have some stats in front of me on third and long situations passing. So like when you gotta have it throws, right? 19 for 20 for 339 yards and 4 scores. He's completing 95% of his passes on third and long. On obvious down and distance, like every single person knows you're passing, and yet you got to do it. You'd think that you'd have to just throw it away a couple of times, right? Because like just with pressure, it's really remarkable what he's doing.
Well, he's been able to, and he's extending plays, which again is starting to lead to this completion. I mean, there's a couple of those plays again against Michigan State that they must be just so frustrated because they had him in their sights, especially the oncoming rushers, and he was able to get outside the pocket and then buy time, allow the receivers to get open a little bit more, and then fit the ball in. And it was again a testament to his whole repertoire. You were seeing JJ McCarthy in full bloom last night. I mean, against Michigan State,
and it's fitting. Really, that it happened there in East Lansing. Him putting it all together. He said he's going to say the thing. I'm done asking about JJ or anyone about this offense, about their performances after the game, because every single time, and not knocking him, I mean, it's kind of coach speak, player speak, but every single time we're not near the surface, haven't scratched it. That's what he said yesterday. So much room to go. Like, eventually you can, like, Jim came in and was like, oh, yeah, that was one of the best games we've played. Like, that was dominant, right? And so I'm done asking about like where this team can go in terms of offense and overall numbers. However, he is now, even as he was pulled in another third quarter, he's now amassing the stats for a Heisman campaign, right? Like not just these advanced numbers, these number one in QBR, number one in Pro Football Focus grade, number two in passer efficiency, but he's number 8 in the nation in touchdowns, right? He's top 50 at 50 in passing yards per game. And the only reason, and that's just one like cumulative stat. I think everybody can clearly look past that one. So he's got quite the case. And I believe that is why, or just one reason why, I mean, the state of this program, when you go into the bye week, there's nothing more Michigan could have wanted to hope for or accomplish. I mean, all the way down to their health. They even yesterday when someone was down on the field, it looked like an MSU player, right? Like, I mean, now that's just coincidental. Anyone can get hurt in football, but I'm just saying, like, they're pretty lined up.
Yeah. I mean, Michigan, it just looks efficient across the board. They look, at functioning at the most optimal level in all facets. And I mean, they look like a championship type caliber team with championship DNA. So, I mean, it's a pretty good situation for Michigan as it heads into the bye week.
Yeah. And on the other side, we're going to talk about part of that championship DNA because it is not just physical strength. It is mental strength. Michigan players, coaches, staff, program, everybody has needed to show that mental fortitude and togetherness as scandal. I don't know about scandal, but investigation after questionable situation continues to arise. Yet Michigan just sort of powers on. So we will talk about the sign stealing allegations, the plot, Harbaugh's comments, what it all means. We'll be back. This is Hell Yes. All right, we are back. And while everything currently, as we just discussed, came up Michigan on the field this weekend, leading into it, things were not trending Michigan's way. For the second time in less than a calendar year, the NCAA is investigating the Wolverines program. And this time, it depends which party line you're walking, right? It's either very serious or nothing to see at all. Reiner.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bizarre story. I mean, again, as I wrote in Saturday's paper, it looks like it came straight out of some kind of dime novel. I mean, you have espionage. You got a guy with like a military background, shadowy figure. You've got code breaking going on. It's an interesting situation. You've got a vast network, according to the Athletic, of spies. Yeah, I mean, it's a bizarre story that's got a lot of intrigue around it. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's again, these are allegations, and it's just one more thing that Michigan has to deal with during the season. I mean, it's not something new for them because they've had so many distractions over the past 13 months. I mean, you had the JJ Caden McNamara quarterback controversy. You had the Mozzie Smith situation. I mean, you've had the Harbaugh to the NFL rumors. You've had Matt Weiss being fired under suspicious circumstances. You've had the Shemi Shemba. Yeah. And you had the NCAA investigation, the first one, into that uncovered potentially 4 minor violations, and includes an allegation of Harbaugh not cooperating with the investigation, which ultimately led to the 3-game suspension in September. So for Harbaugh, and it's just one thing after another with this program. Yet it doesn't seem to affect them at all on the field.
Right, and so I'm sure as many people have asked you as have asked me, what's going on, right? What does this mean? Is the sky falling? And I just caution away from reacting super far, as we both try to do in all walks of life, super far one way or the other. Here's how I would present this. Let's say this exact same story, everything we heard came out of Columbus, right? In this past week. What would the narrative around Ann Arbor have been? Right? Very different than it was now.
Sure.
So I'm just saying, and that's even if we had the exact same set of facts. So inherently, what that means is, and it's human nature, people are going to believe what they want to believe. Do what they want to believe. A lot of it, I mean, it's very political, frankly.
It's a tribal society.
Yeah, and that's not unique to Michigan. It's every fan base. But Michigan's got the biggest fan base, and a lot of fans with a lot of, I mean, notable alums and people, and a lot of storylines that just sort of go their way. If we're being honest, and that is not saying we do that, in case that needs any clarity. But I'm just saying, I don't want to jump and say Michigan, this is nothing, like, because people have asked me like, oh, so like this is going to be no big deal. I'd be like, well, I wouldn't say that. And then they're like, oh, like, so like Harbaugh knew they were cheating. I'm like, well, I don't know if I'd say that either. But
the one thing I wonder, if the evidence is uncovered, I mean, what punishment can be administered that would affect Michigan this season? That's the question. I mean, the NCAA moves at a glacial pace. Typically,
it will all be retroactive.
Would the Big Ten intervene? I mean, it's there's a lot of gray area with this, as much as there's a gray area with the whole entire story itself. And so, I mean, but in the court of public opinion, the cloud of allegations is going to hover over Michigan, and again, it's going to affect the public perception of the team and its success, which, I mean, it's kind of a shame for the players, because they can't prove that otherwise. I mean, Zach Zinter said after the game, I mean, we just shut them, Michigan State out. What else? What more do you want us to do? Yet there are going to be people that, again, are going to be so convicted in their beliefs about Michigan, potentially doing something wrong, that they're not going to believe that any of the results are valid. So it's kind of a shame for the players that they have to experience this, because, and even the coaches themselves, because now people are going to question, whether their tactics and their in-game adjustments were the result of, finding out the play signals in real time and then being able to apply them, say, in the second half when Michigan has typically been dominant. And so, yeah, there's
anyone who's guilty, this is not too bad for, obviously, of whatever they've committed. However, to your point, you're right, for the players, for anyone who's just tangentially affiliated and is getting, I mean, frankly, it's what Michigan State's entire program has gone through all season, right? Specific. I mean, if you're talking about, like, I mean, Mel Tucker's actions and how he torpedoed that torpedo, right? Like, no one, like,
right. But this is more of a competitive advantage situation where people are alleging that Michigan's success is largely responsible, or has been largely attributed to the play.
I see what you're saying. I just meant merely the mental fortitude it takes of for players, right? To like, oh, well, this isn't fair. This is not their situation, yet they have to deal with it. And I was making a comparison because, like, you can come together, right? You see what happens when things fracture and when teams use it as unity.
Right. And it's just, but again, it's such a tough situation, because if you are innocent and you have these accusations, hovering above you, there's nothing you can do to really shift public perception away. I mean, again, people are so entrenched in their beliefs, whether they love Michigan and think they did nothing wrong, or whether they hate Michigan and assume the worst. It's an unfortunate situation for the players and even the coaches to get caught in if they are in fact innocent.
And while your question was like, how does it affect this season, right? maybe it doesn't. Maybe it does. It will certainly affect something somewhere, right? Like,
Right.
and then the question is if it affects next year. Like, I mean, the first NCAA investigation is not done. Jim Harbaugh's suspension was self-imposed by the university, right? They still need to go through that process and come to some sort of resolution. That's one. Now, a second NCAA investigation. I mean, I'm not certain how. Again, this is still very new, so who knows if it gets dropped or if there's another level 1 charge, right, or anywhere in between. However, it's more murkiness, it's more uncertainty, and for Jim Harbaugh, who has already shown a willingness to be looking elsewhere, even when things are good, what does it mean for him, right?
Yeah, I mean, it does raise questions. Although, I mean, part of me wonders. I mean, again, Harbaugh's weathered this storm so much already, and and has taken so much heat. And I mean, he even was with his daughter, right? At the game. I mean, referenced her. I mean, I think he likes his family situation here. I mean, his father lives nearby or next door. I don't know, in the same neighborhood, it seems, and he's established his life here. He's been here 9 years. Does he really want to uproot his family? That's a question. I mean, he's pushing 60 now, and he's got Michigan at rocking and rolling like he's never had before. I mean, this is the best period of his tenure, and it's not even close. And so, I mean, does he want to up and leave and again cower, I guess, in the face of his critics, I guess, and kind of slink off to somewhere else? I don't think that's his nature either. So there's part of him that I can see him digging in and wanting to fight this to the very end and stick with Michigan through these maybe challenging times, I guess, as far as public perception is. And then yet there's another part that he does really want to go compete in the NFL and win that Super Bowl. And so maybe this is the impetus for him to push for that opportunity again for the third year in a row. So I don't know. It's hard to tell with Jim Harbaugh. Nobody can get in the mind of the man.
It could so go either way, right? So it seems just Jim Harbaugh, and because I'm not trying to imply that he wants to leave Michigan or is eager to leave Michigan. However, his hand might be quote unquote forced if the NCAA, I mean, he said it yesterday. He was asked, do you feel like you have a target on your back? He's like, I mean, yeah, you've kind of seen what happened. That's still the case, right? And so say they're like, yeah, no, you're not coaching the first 8 games next year or whatever. I just made that number up. But if it's anything substantial for next year, he might not want to sit out a month or 2 and I mean, maybe there's no suspension. I guess we just don't know. But I think I have reason to believe Michigan was moving down the certain Jim Harbaugh path. There was a lot of alignment. I'm not saying they're moving away from that. However, this does table it, and they do need to. Everybody needs to look around and make sure that this was just some quote unquote rogue staffer, right, and not this vast network, and that Jim Harbaugh did not have any intelligence around this.
Yeah,
that just needs to be. There needs to be no. I mean, I think everyone who I've spoken to is very certain of, or feels very certain of that. But it's not something you can feel certain about. You need to be certain.
Totally agree. I mean, there can't be really much ambiguity as far as the final determination as far as what Harbaugh's role in it, if there was any role, or if this is even a thing that's really valid. I mean, the investigation still has to play out, and the facts have to be uncovered and laid out for everybody, and Michigan can make that determination after that has occurred. For now, kind of Michigan and Harbaugh are in a bit of a holding pattern, and the only focus they can really have is on the season itself and kind of completing the task this year with the championship. The shame of it, again, is though, I mean, if you write this story about Michigan football in 2023 and it ends with the national championship, I mean, this is going to be kind of a side story in it, and it can't be ignored. And so, same with the Harbaugh 3-game suspension at the beginning of the year. It's part of the plot of this series.
And that's a conversation we had earlier, right? And I remember us having it. And I mean, I think we just had a difference of opinion. But I remember, if I'm remembering it correctly, you were like, "Yeah, like paraphrasing. It's too bad that happened at the beginning of the season. Just if they do go on this run and there's a side story."
Yeah.
I did not see that as a bothersome side story. I mean, like, yes, it is a footnote. However, the allegations and the charges were nothing that related to like super X and O on the field cheating. Like it was what seemed more ticky tacky. This appears to be like just in terms of headline, right? Just more brazen, just more shock value. And this one in the court of public opinion really, I think, will right, wrong, or indifferent, does have.
It does. It does, and it feeds into the idea that Harbaugh is really not well liked amongst his peers. I mean, that's why. I mean, he says he has a target on the back, and people are envious or don't like people who are successful. I mean, Harbaugh has rankled the coaching establishment with the satellite camps when he first got there, angering the SEC, and even got into it with Ryan Day over the use of a position coach during the COVID ramp-up period in 2020, which led to the days that we're going to hang 100 on you, and the back and forth there. And and so it's been one thing after the other, and again, he's become a target by some of his brazenness as it relates to his own peers, and I think that's how this kind of story mushrooms and comes out in the middle of a season. I mean, here Michigan is really at its highest point during Harbaugh's tenure, and lo and behold, here come these allegations that seem to be coming from elsewhere, where people are accusing him of, again, illegally obtaining play signals.
Yeah, and it's why I felt like a shrink, like a therapist yesterday, asking him, because Harbaugh was talking about the whole situation. And I was like, well, how do you, like, he said, like, yeah, we do feel like a target or this or that. And I was like, well, how does that make you feel though? Mm-hmm. And he was just like, just keep going. Right. Like it was just like I annoyed, but he can't address it. It's like he wants to stay, to use his phrase, like it's like he wants to stay above it, but he is it. He is always in it. You know what I mean?
And Harbaugh takes things personally. I mean, it's the truth. I mean,
great competitors do.
And I tell you that, yeah, exactly. I mean, and it's a sign of his personality and everything. I mean, it's a kind of an us against the world mentality. I mean, you're either with me or you're against me, and that's how Harbaugh looks at things. And I expect him to look at this situation very much like that as well. I mean, the whole Michigan versus everybody, it's Harbaugh versus everybody in his eyes, and so it's he's ready to take on his enemies and his opponents and rub it in their face. And I think that final touchdown against MSU was kind of another shot across the bow, I guess, from Harbaugh's standpoint. I mean, again, they didn't need to do it. They could have probably taken a knee. I mean, but MSU kind of rankled them, obviously, with the tunnel incident the year before, and they just had gotten a unsports or personal foul penalty, I think, just a moment before that, and so why not just drive the stake in them? And so that's how Harbaugh sees his opponents, and I think the team will probably rally behind him in this situation, and there's going to be a level of defiance there with how Michigan plays, and they're going to channel Harbaugh's energy into their performances, and it looked like they were doing that on Saturday against the Spartans.
That's exactly right, Reiner, and it doesn't look like it's going to stop anytime soon, except for the bye week. That's really all that's going to be able to slow Michigan down at this point. And then after the bye, very quickly, Reiner, before we wrap up, it is bye week, Purdue, Penn State, it is now a Penn State game that does not look as daunting as it did 24 hours ago. Ohio State easily took care of Penn State 20-6. Some thoughts about that ahead of what will be Michigan's first true test of the year. It's still a test, right?
Yeah, it's a test, but it doesn't look as I guess daunting, as you said, going into it. The fact is that Penn State's offense doesn't look like it's championship caliber. Drew Aller couldn't get anything going against Jim Knowles' defense, and Ohio State pretty much had the game in control for pretty much from once they established the lead, and then they really weren't threatening the rest of the game. And so I don't know what it says about Ohio State, but it doesn't say much about Penn State, I don't think. I mean, it was their first true test, and they failed it pretty badly just because the offense was not impressive at all. It just doesn't look like they would be able to go toe-to-toe with Michigan, even at Beaver Stadium.
No, it doesn't. And I wish I could give credit to the Twitter account who I saw it from. I saw a tweet that said Penn State is just Iowa with a finished basement, and I about choked on my meal. I mean, it was just so good. Like, that's what it is. It's white collar Iowa. It's just bad. They got a great defense. They can't, like, their offense. I mean, they haven't done it for 25 years, but just there's no deep shots. There's no downfield attack.
No.
And it's just like they're not going to move the ball consistently against Michigan. Like, I think Michigan. I bet the line will probably be like Michigan minus 6.5, and that feels like free right now. Any last thoughts before we say our thanks and our goodbyes?
I'm just going to hop in here real quick. Sorry, guys. I'm just going to hop in here real quick.
What's up, Andrew?
We're not doing picks this week. We got a bye week. So I need to take my time to gloat about my perfect Ohio State Penn State prediction. Completely nailed that one there. Said Ohio State. So people were maybe sleeping on them. Is their defense maybe a little bit better than people thought? Maybe they're a little bit tougher than people think. You think? Is that going to be a tougher game against the Buckeyes, the final game of the season, or is Penn State just not that good?
I think that Penn State is just not that good. I think Michigan also looks better than Ohio State. And I think Penn State is just not that good. I mean, how many times I got Charlie Brown again by James Franklin. This one's going to be different. Like, I mean, how many times does he got to give us the okie doke, right? They lose their two hardest games every single year. And Ohio State has not shown that it can be the level of Michigan. And I know this is transitive property. I know that's how you get in trouble in football. And yeah, they're going to be at home. It's going to have a lot of juice. What Penn State needs is to get ahead of game script on Michigan, right? Make Michigan face a little adversity somehow, like turn JJ over. But that's down the road. I think I found out Penn State was bad. I didn't think that Ohio State was great. Their defense was good.
Yeah, I'm most curious to see what Jim Knowles' defense does. I mean, in the matchup with Michigan. I mean, I think, the lessons that he learned from that game in 2022, I mean, especially in the second half, and some of the gambles he made. I don't know how he's going to do that in another year in the system, how well that defense has adjusted to him. It looks pretty good so far, but again, was that more to do with Penn State's limitations on offense? I mean, this is an attack, like you said, that has not really thrown deep at all this season, and they seem very cautious as far as how they use Drew Aller in the passing game. And so, Penn State just, again, doesn't look ready for prime time themselves, and it was a pretty eye-opening performance that kind of suggests that Penn State's ceiling is much lower than we anticipated, going into the game.
Right. I agree. Even after, and that's on us. We both picked Penn State last week, right?
Yeah.
And so they got me. And we should have known, because Drew Aller, even in the win against West Virginia, when they put up 38 points, he threw for 4 touchdowns, 31 passes, had like 150 yards. It's just all check down. And we said it at the time, but I thought I picked Penn State to cover. I said Penn State to cover. I thought that defense, but they were never in good field position, really a punt. It was 10-6. Ohio State was backed up in the third quarter. I mean, on the heel of their own goal line. And this Penn State dude could have fair caught it on the 50. He let it bounce over his head. It was a 75-yard punt. It ended up at like the 24, and then Penn State went backwards, flipped it. Ohio State flipped the field position completely flipped, and then Penn State could never catch up again. And that's how bad their offense is. We're talking field position. But since Andrew wanted to bring up the picks very quickly, since we won't get to do it last week, Andrew 2-2 last week, Reiner 2-2 last week. Yours truly 3-1, now 6-1-1 in the last 2 weeks. Don't look now, boys. But Andrew and I are both 15, 12, and 4. Reiner is still right there at 13, 14, and 4. So that's going to do it, unless Andrew wanted to chime in. Andrew, any thoughts?
Just finally felt like I was on the wrong side of one with that Alabama-Tennessee game. I mean, Joe Milton totally gave that thing away, and they gave Alabama everything they could for a 14-point loss. You know, that one felt like a little bit of robbery, but as Tony has so kindly pointed out time and time again, there's been some that have gone my way. So not one to complain too much.
One or two. The good guys got one this week. All right, everybody. Thanks as always for listening. Rate, review, subscribe, and thank you to those who make it possible, this show. Editor-in-Chief Nicole Avery Nichols, Executive Editor Anjanette Delgado, Sports Editor Kirkland Crawford, Audio Engineer Robin Chan, and the man you just heard from, Andrew Burkle. For Reiner, I'm Tony. No, you won't hear from us for a week. Everybody, be safe, enjoy. If you hear from us, it's because there was some breaking news. This is a one-show week. This is our bye week. I'll be up north. I don't know where Reiner will be, but looking forward to it. So thanks, everyone. Talk to you next week.